He didn't pitch in the postseason, didn't set any records, didn't have a string of 20-win seasons. Yet he made everyone who watched him pitch feel good. So good, in fact, that he became a folk hero in the city of Detroit. He did it by being himself, a quirky overachiever who threw with more heart than speed. He talked to the ball, thanked his fielders when they made a good play, and chatted with umpires. Oh yeah, for one glorious season, Mark Fidrych was the best pitcher in baseball.
As we go to the stadium, we say, well, wait a minute, what is this? There's 50,000 people lined up around the block buying tickets. We say, what is there, another game or something? You know, it's June 28th, Yankees-Tigers Monday night game. Who cares?
On the mound is this young man by the name of Mark Fidrych, and I guess there's a lot about him that we maybe don't understand.
ABC was in its first year of doing Monday night telecasts, and here on this June night in great old Tiger Stadium, the place is rocking.
50,000 fans will be here tonight to see 21-year-old Mark Fidrych.
Detroit fans realized what they had, and the newspapers used to print graphs of how the crowds would build steadily every time he pitched.
That's starting pitcher Mark Fidrych, who pats the mound. He manicures the mound before each inning.
He was making people laugh. He was talking to the baseball. He was talking to his shoes.
I get a kick out of this guy.
He's probably saying, come on, move that ball, move that ball.
People really took to him because he wasn't fake. What he was doing was him.
We're going to look at Mark Fidrych now. Each time he gets the ball back and he gets set to go to his delivery, you'll see him mumble a couple of words to the ball. He's telling the ball where he wants it to go, and it's disturbing to the hitter because you can hear him too.
Bird's out there pitching, and he's out there, he's talking to the ball, doing like this, so he started to throw. I stepped out of the batter's box, and I took my bat, and I started talking to my bat. And I said, now don't you listen to that ball out there, don't you listen.
I'll tell you, the fans really getting a kick and reacting to Fidrych.
Normally, Detroit takes a long time. You have to be there for a while before they finally say, okay, you're one of our own. Mark Fidrych arrived, started talking to the baseball, and they said, we'll take him. He's good.
Thurman Munson at that time had mentioned, well, he had never heard of the Bird. And they asked Bird. Bird said, well, who was Thurman Munson?
And Fidrych just threw it right by as he turned off the lights on Mr. Chambliss.
I was watching the ball game. My wife was doing something in the back in about the middle of the ball game. I knew he was something special.
Look at Fidrych charge off that mound.
And I called her in and I said, hey, watch this. This guy's for real, and he's liable to do something sensational here.
Pitching in front of his first national television audience, Fidrych took a 5-1 lead into the ninth.
If he can get by this one with all the hoopla going on in the stadium with the Yankees, national television, then we might really have something.
Look at Fidrych. He's talking. He's walking around.
You'd have to become excited and start rooting for the guy.
Oh!
I'll bet you he threw that ball over 95 miles an hour.
Boy, this guy's higher than a kite.
If this guy completes the ninth inning, they're not going to leave.
Young Mark Fidrych with a 5-1 lead, shooting for his 8th win of the year and his 8th complete game. He got it! And the fans are standing for Fidrych.
The momentum was building. The fans were in a frenzy.
I remember the last out of the game, a ground ball to second base. Honest to God, tears came to my eyes.
The fans ready to explode. Here's your pitch. Ground ball should be the ball game. It's over. And the Tigers act like Fidrych has just won the 7th game of the World Series. Look at that. He's thanking his teammates. He's thanking the umpires, everybody, the ground crew. And the fans want him to come back.
I went in the clubhouse, and Fidrych was taking his shirt off, and I said, don't take your shirt off. He says, why not? I said, we're going to go say hello to the fans.
Here he comes. Here he comes. Oh, this is unbelievable. He loves them. Look at that. Shaking the policeman's hand. Look at that. This kid is terrific.
In my life, I've been in baseball 35 years. I have never in my life ever seen anything to equal this.
He just looked so genuine, and it looked like, hey, I had to go into this war. I went into the war. I won the war. And now the world is mine.
You said you did this in the minor leagues too, Mark. I mean, this isn't just a thing that has started now in the major leagues. You did it all the time, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I've done this ever since I've been pitching. Keep my mind in the game. Cut.
All right, that's our man, Mark Fidrych.
It was like Barbra Streisand opening up in Funny Girl. It was opening night. You saw a star was born. Mark Fidrych, that Monday night game made him a star.
With a 9-2 record, Fydrich again took center stage 2 weeks later when he was the American League starter at the All-Star game in Philadelphia.
Mark Fidrych. I live in Northborough, Massachusetts, and I'm a pitcher for the All-Star game. Is that good?
I offered to drive him in a taxi cab to Veterans Stadium, and he accepted. We got in the taxi cab along with Rod Carew. We went down to the ballpark.
All he talked about was pumping gas. That was his lifelong dream. And here he is in the limelight. Nothing about baseball, nothing about the possibility of pitching that next game, just pumping gas.
In '76, we were on the All-Star team together, and I remember Gerald Ford coming into the locker room in Philadelphia.
They said, hey, Ford's here and he wants to meet you. I said, you know, basically, can I meet him after? Someone says, it's not that easy, Mark. Yeah. Oh, okay.
You're throwing better than I do.
Fidrych just like talking to him like, just no big deal. Hey, Prez, you know, how you doing?
Just getting all this stuff and shake it. I'm tight. I don't know what to do.
I tell you, Mark Fidrych, it's not the way we've seen him pitch. We had him a couple of weeks ago on a Monday night game.
That's hit down the right side. Staub running and can't get it. And it gets by Rusty. And Rose will score.
Although Fydrich took the loss, his popularity continued to surge.
He was a guy that people came out to see that day. There was a tremendous curiosity, I know, in this town, a National League town, to see this guy who was getting all these headlines, and you kept hearing about what a crazy guy he was. Well, he was crazy in a nice way.
He was kind of in the midst of all this excitement, and everybody was kind of swept along with it. Was he for real? How long was he going to last? They just talked about the bird. Even if they didn't know his name, he was the bird, and people would talk about that during the summer of 1976.
Born August 14, 1954, to Paulding, Virginia, Mark and his three sisters were raised in Northborough, Massachusetts. Population 10,000. Traffic lights 1.
It's a mixture of a farming community but with a mill town flavor, not unlike a lot of the towns in central Massachusetts. That's where Fydrych is from. That's who Fydrych is.
It was such a working-class town. I went to the little bar where they hung out, and they were funny. At the end of the day, they went in to whoop it up and talk sports, and they all spoke in the incredible New England accent.
Mac. You know, hey, Mac. Mac, good job. Mac, bring it in.
It was like stepping into an earlier part of the century. This was a town that really hadn't changed.
A lot of great baseball has been played there for years and years. Guys would work in factories all day long and play baseball at night.
I had a lot of guys my age and a few guys older, and we all had the same interests, you know, fishing, building tree forts, playing baseball, basketball, and football.
He always had a problem. It was either stitches, fell in a fire, got a fork under his eye. He was always into something. He kept my mother and father very busy.
Paul Fydrych was a school teacher who had once attended a minor league camp. He brought both his talents to bear on his son.
The biggest influence in his life was my father. As far as being there with him, playing with him, having an interaction with him with the baseball.
Chesterfield Road, that's where my father and I used to always play. He was always like teaching me how to hold the ball, keep it below the knees, Mark. This is how you want to keep it at the knees here. Then when you got the mound, the hole in it, He said, used to always say, fill that in. See how the guy, you know, on TV when the pros would do it, they'd dig a hole. He said, see, when you step there, Mark, you go down, then back up again. Stay level.
Mark's relationship with his father was incredible. Anytime we did anything as a team or he did anything, it was like he couldn't wait to call his father or tell his father what happened, or the way Mark says it, father.
However much he learned about playing baseball from his father, Mark could not duplicate his diamond talents in the classroom.
I had problems in school. Adding and subtracting wasn't bad. It was reading. And it was weird to stay back, being a little kid, and then see your friends go to second grade and you're still in first grade. And then you got to second grade, stayed back again, and then your friends are in fourth grade now. Later on in your life, you were just saying, you know, maybe it'll come eventually. And it never really did.
Mark Fidrych was the type of guy who was more interested in sports. He was more interested in gallivanting, cavorting around, than he would have been in his studies.
If I didn't have sports, I would have probably quit school.
He was never a good student, but he always had people laughing in the class. He'd wear a funny hat, or he'd put gum on a teacher's seat. I mean, he did all the traditional things that comedians tend to do as youngsters, and it just so happened he happened to be a good baseball player, so he went in that direction.
At Worcester Academy, Fydrich played several positions, but it was his control on the mound that intrigued at least one scout.
From what the scout told me, Mark was playing the outfield and came in to pitch the last 2 innings, and that's when he really saw him.
He could throw a strike at the knees, inside or out, probably 9 out of 10 times. It was amazing.
The scouting report said that with instruction, he could become a good pitcher. Then one day, Mark's future arrived at his doorstep.
I'm getting lunch, and all of a sudden, a knock on the door. Guy looks at me and says, Mark Fidrych? And I said, yes. He says, are your parents home? My father's here, yeah. He says, oh, I'd like to sit down and talk to you. I'm with the Tigers, and we'd like to draft you.
The Tigers picked him in the 10th round of the 1974 draft.
We were kind of in shock, like we really didn't know what was happening. Like, got drafted for what? What did he do? We just couldn't believe it.
It really surprised him because I think he thought he was going to pump gas for the rest of his life.
After signing for a $3,000 bonus and playing a season in the minors, Fydrych headed south the following year for his first spring training.
I arrived in Tampa. Here I am in Tampa Airport, going, hello, where is Lakeland?
He wanted to sleep outside. He brought his tent with him, and that was going to be his home. We discouraged him, of course, from doing that, but that's a little bit about Mark as far as the way that he looks at things.
When I first got on the field, they went, pitchers over here, catchers over there, outfielders over here, infielders over there, and I'm standing there. See, I thought it was still like, you know, Legion, high school. You know, maybe I can play in the infield. He says, no, kid, you're in the minor leagues now. They signed you as a pitcher. I don't think you're going to play any other position.
He come flying off the mound with his elbows going one direction and his heels another, covering first base, taking the flip from the first baseman. I just looked at him and I saw Big Bird from Sesame Street. And so then I just mentioned we had the bird, and it stuck with him.
With about a month to go in the season, we needed a starter for the Evansville club, which is AAA.
Fydrych filled the slot admirably for Evansville, winning 4 games with a 1.59 ERA. The next spring training, he was primed to make the majors, but not everyone was convinced.
Didn't really pay too much attention to him. He was just a guy hanging on, and finally got down to the final cut, and he made that final cut.
He looked like a ragamuffin to me. He looked like somebody that they just brought in out of the sticks somewhere. We played an exhibition game with Cincinnati, and he came in and got everybody out, and I said, well, we better take him along and see what happens.
Ralph says, kid, you made the club. He says, we decided to go with 10 pitches, and I'm sitting in the chair going, yeah? It's like, can we talk about this a little later? I gotta go make a phone call right now.
He told the clubhouse kid, give me a dime. He wanted to access the operator so he could call his parents and tell them that he made the major leagues.
I said, Dad, made it. like, wow, man, you know, he's like, you couldn't talk, you know what to say. I made it. Dad, I'm going with the big club. Not going to play right off the bat. They're going to filter me in somehow, but I'm going north. It was a great feeling to have.
In baseball in the middle 1970s, there really was a transition period. Free agency had come about. There was so much talk about negotiations, contracts, salaries, conditions, that I think there was a sour feeling generally in the country about the game and about these ball players.
All of a sudden came this incredible, magic person. He hit Detroit like nothing I've ever seen.
It was almost as if this was Bowie Kuhn selling somebody's soul to bring life and purity into the game.
He was like a guy who walked in off the street from one of the working class suburbs and happened to get a job at Tiger Stadium. And instead of selling hot dogs or sweeping after the game, he happened to be throwing the ball from the pitcher's mound.
He brought the sense of joy to the game in part because of where he came from. I mean, I think he was out there in the mound thinking, can you believe this? Look at me. I'm from Northborough, Massachusetts.
Everybody came out to have a good time. The Birds pitching tonight. We're going to have fun.
He kept you involved in the game because what is he going to do next? And it's not outrageous or anything. It's just different.
Anytime anybody got a base hit off him, he would have the baseball discarded immediately.
And as soon as a guy would make a good play, he'd jump off the mound and run over and pat the guy on the butt, and then he'd run back to the mound. He'd be waiting. He'd have his glove out, waiting for the ball. Come on, throw it to me. I've got a batter to get out now.
Each inning would start where he would go out and put his glove down with the ball, and he would be sure that that mound was just as he wanted it.
And then stand up and he'd take the ball and actually start talking to the ball, like the ball was a person.
Like the ball had a soul, the ball understood, and the ball could talk back.
People didn't know what he was doing, so I used to say to him, like at dinner, what are you saying? He would say, okay, ball, now I'm going to throw you, and I want you to go where I tell you to go.
I suppose there are times when I walked out to the mound that I could have felt that I was interrupting a conversation, maybe, and yet I was the only one there.
The speed at which he pitched, 2 hours and 1 minute, 1 hour and 59 minutes. It was like baseball in double time.
I'll tell you, Fydrich's working like he wants to catch a train.
Crazy and nut, you know, he'd be talking to the ball and then turn around and then talk to you and go like that with the ball and tell you where he's going to throw it and everything, and he would do that, and you couldn't hit it.
And Fydrich doesn't fool around, right in there, talking to that ball.
And it added to the frustration of a hitter more and more and more and more, and then hitters tried to just hit the ball back up the middle. They were trying to hit the ball back at him.
Fydrich feels his position well and throws out Randolph by 45 feet.
I hit a line drive back through the middle. It was about knee-high. Got a base hit the only time I ever faced him. And we were doing an appearance together out in Arizona. I says, do you remember that? He says, I don't remember you. You know, I says, okay, that's fair.
By August, he had compiled an 11-3 record and a 1.80 ERA with 13 complete games.
The great thing about it was that he was a good pitcher. Nothing tricky, he didn't cheat or he didn't do anything. He just threw the ball hard and kept it low.
Mark Fidrych could throw a baseball in a keyhole from 60 feet. He had incredible control.
Everywhere he went, he packed him in. And he was not just a circus attraction, like I said, he was a talented pitcher.
I mean, everybody wanted to see him. They sold out all over the league when Mark was going to pitch.
The Bird comes to New York. What a mega event that was. If we weren't in the process of winning a pennant, it would have been our one highlight for the whole season. And a lot of kids came to the ballpark that day because their parents said, you got to see this guy. He's Big Bird pitching in Major League Baseball.
There was a time in Anaheim, he was scheduled, but then he didn't pitch. So they rigged this huge bird cage, and he sat in the bird cage and signed autographs.
Minnesota was expecting a bigger crowd because Mark was going to pitch,
but I don't think they expected quite this big a crowd, and they were just having trouble processing people through the turnstiles, and so what they ended up doing is pushing the game back. That was all because of Mark.
He was the best pitcher in baseball in 1976. He captivated fans the way Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa did. They stayed after the game to give him curtain calls. Not just one game, but many games.
You'd have to be a zombie not to get charged up after leaving the ballpark when Mark pitched that year.
Fydrich was the greatest thing I ever saw in the major leagues. I never saw anybody do to fans what Mark Fidrych did to fans.
As big as he was on the road, Fydrich's appeal at home was nothing short of sensational. Over a stretch of 11 starts, he drew an average of 43,000 fans into Tiger Stadium.
He captivated the people of this city like nothing I have ever seen before.
Hell, we'd draw 45 to 50 when Mark pitched. The next night it'd be 15.
He had that kind of impact on the economy of the city. And what was he doing? He was acting loony. Maybe we needed some loony stuff at that time. Maybe we needed somebody to blow some fresh air into our crumbling city.
In '76, Detroit was a city that was deeply troubled economically, racially, and in other ways.
It's been a tough situation. You've had a racial problem that happened in '67. We had terrible riots here.
We were in the midst of what we call white flight. 800,000 people left the city of Detroit out of fear, and they were white people. They just didn't want to be here.
Statistics don't lie either. You know, there was a lot of crime in Detroit.
The economic crush from the Japanese automakers started to take hold in the city, and it was very serious to Detroit.
And Fydrich brought life back into the ballpark, and he brought people back into the ballpark. And the fact that he was bringing in white suburbanites was very important to Detroit.
It didn't matter whether you were a black fan or a white fan or Spanish or whatever, you rooted for Mark Fidrych.
These people who in 9 years fled the city saw a reason to come back, to have some joy, to have some pleasure at a place that was familiar to them, the ballpark, Tiger Stadium.
He gave this town a real kind of an injection of joy, and we needed it.
His idea of a good time, he would go to his room with a case of beer, play loud rock and roll music, probably in those days like Three Dog Night, and blast it and drink beer.
It was the apartment of a teenager. It had no furniture, sheets on the wall, one couch, a TV.
He's like the little boy that's thrown into a pile of horse, you know, and he's bobbing up and down, and they say, "How can you be so happy?" And he says, "There's got to be a pony in here somewhere." You know, his glass is always half full.
In terms of the way Fydrich dressed, he could blend right in to the crowd standing in line for an Alice Cooper concert, easily.
If we went to a black tie affair, he would come in with electric blue and gold striping.
He loved music. The one I remember most was Elton John, because I took him to see Elton John, and then we went backstage.
And he says, you know, after my concerts, when you used to play or whatever, if I didn't have the time, I had the people taping it, and I'd watch it after. Even though I knew the outcome already, I'd watch you after.
Elton John, I think, was more thrilled to meet Mark Fidrych than Mark Fidrych was to meet Elton John.
Went to the concert with the Beach Boys in their limo. I mean, I was in heaven.
If you look at Mark Fidrych, it was almost as though he woke up one morning and there was this thing wrapped on his kitchen table in Northborough, Massachusetts that said, Big League Fame. And he unwrapped it, and he put it on, and he went out and did it.
This gangly, awkward, incredibly excited kid from a little village in Massachusetts explodes onto the national scene.
He sort of permeated everything. When you turn on TV, there he was. You turn on the radio, there he was. Or if you were lucky enough to have a bird sighting, that was considered great.
After he became the only baseball player to ever appear on the cover of Rolling Stone, Fydrich entered a heady realm usually reserved for rock stars.
The young teenage women of Detroit were all going crazy, gaga over him.
When we would leave the park, it would be crazy. Thousands of people. They'd be rocking the car, and it was pretty scary. They just loved him. Of course, all the women loved him. All his golden locks.
He came in and sat down, and everybody got around him. Everybody. So finally, I said, come on, girls, can we back up a little bit? That hair didn't even have time to hit the floor. They caught it. All of them were standing around catching the hair. We had men that come in, even some of the girls that had natural curly hair would come in and ask for that haircut.
If Fydrich's fans occasionally took a piece of him, many returned the favor through the mail.
The gifts, the teddy bears, the toys, the balloons, the boxes, the birthday cakes were so piled around his locker that you could literally not get close to him. He could hide behind it. You never see him.
Sometimes the mail contained cash meant to supplement his rookie salary.
Fans wanted to give a guy who was underpaid a recognition that, hey, they're not paying you enough. Here's $5 or $10, and if enough people send it to you, you may make a living this year.
They sent me the money. I didn't know what to do with it. Went up to Ralph Hulk and said, Ralph, I'm getting money in the mail. And he goes, let us handle it. Keep opening your letters. Every time you get the money, give it back to us. I said, because I can't keep this, Ralph. This ain't right.
The Tigers were certainly embarrassed by all the publicity that he was making, the minimum of $16,000 then.
What became known as the Bucks for the Bird campaign took a political turn when the Michigan State Legislature pressed the Tigers to renegotiate his contract.
It's hard to believe that these days that legislatures would pass resolutions urging teams to pay players more. That was an extraordinary resolution, almost as wacky as Mark himself. We had an athlete who was underpaid, and there's no doubt about it. He was underpaid.
Completing 24 of 29 starts, Fydrich finished with a 19-9 record and a 2.34 ERA, the lowest in the majors. After being named Rookie of the Year, Fydrich was ready to discuss a new contract with Detroit's GM.
When Mr. Campbell asked me, to come up and sign a contract, what we wanted to talk about, the first thing out of my mouth was, Mr. Campbell, I have to have my father there because we all did this together and I want him there. And he says, fine.
I don't think he would have been comfortable with an agent. I don't think he wanted to hold anybody up for a tremendously high salary.
That's how I felt. That's why I didn't get an agent. All I'm looking for is a 3-year contract to get me 4 years, because you had to have 4 years in the big leagues when I played to get a pension.
After signing a 3-year deal worth $225,000, Fydrich bought a home in Northborough for his parents and some land for himself. With money and fame beyond his dreams, it seemed the future belonged to the Bird.
It had to be in the back of his mind. I'm not sure I can ever lift these people up to this level again, and I really want to because they were feeling good, and I was feeling good, and I want them to feel good. And I think that became a burden to Mark.
If I go out, to a restaurant or something, I'm history. I just sit there and sign autographs while I'm eating my meal. But like I said, I don't mind it because if I did, I just wouldn't go out. But, you got to be able to cope with it, I guess. Who knows?
When he had this fabulous year in 1976 when he captivated everybody, the next spring, in spring training, he showed up and he was totally out of control. And I looked at him. I saw him jumping around, jumping over fences, racing here, doing all kinds of crazy things because the pressure all went along was so great on him. Mark, do this again, enchant us again, excite us again, fill our lives again.
First off, he was like a March hare. He was all over the place. And everybody tried to contain him.
And I wrote a column saying, please be careful. You're going to get hurt. Don't do this.
So I'm out with Rusty. We're in right field. I'm like, hey, Rusty, he said, Mark, slow down now. He says, we got a week left in spring training. Slow it down.
You have no idea how much you mean to this game and to this team. And you're going to have to stop doing all this wrestling and the shenanigans. You know, suppose you hurt yourself doing that.
I said, Rusty, you know, it's baseball, having a good time. He says, yeah, but slow it down, kid. Yeah, okay.
And within less than 5 minutes, a fly ball came to center field, and he jumped over someone to catch the fly ball over his head.
Like a fool, I jumped up, because I'm a kid. Jumped up, came down.
And I could tell he hurt his knee when he hit the ground. And I couldn't believe it. I absolutely could not believe it. And I walked over to center field and I said, you just hurt your leg, didn't you?
When he hit me in the back of the head with his glove, I mean, that hurt. I mean, he says, I just told you, no more than a minute ago. Wham! I went, whoa, wow, Rusty, Jesus, I don't know what's hurting worse now. He says, go see the trainer. I blew out my knee.
He told me that night after he called his father and, you know, he was almost in tears, and he said, I had everything and now I might have lost it. I thought my arm would go before my legs. It's better to go out and lose every game than lose it this way.
Returning to Detroit immediately, Fydrich underwent knee surgery in late March of 1977. While an entire city anxiously awaited the results of the operation, their hero lay in his bed, feeling his resentment mount to the breaking point.
We go to the press conference, myself and the TVs and the radios and the other writers, but in the room, all these nurses were lining all the walls. Poor Mark, they're going on, poor Marky. He looks at me and he points to me, he said, there's the guy standing right there who hoped I would get hurt. He's got it all wrong. And those nurses glared at me, and those doctors looked at me. What could I do?
I wasn't angry at the world. I was just mad at myself, frustrated.
The city was devastated because we were scared, you know, what would this mean to his career? And so everybody else worried about it. I'm not saying more than he did, but certainly it caused a lot of concern.
The surgery to repair torn cartilage in the knee was called a success. Fydrich took the mound on May 27, 1977, and after losing 2 starts, got back on track. Compiling 6 straight victories, he was named to the All-Star team.
Oh, my knee's fine. All I got is a scar now. You know, I don't worry about anything like that, man. It's just great. You know, I'm feeling fine. I'm in heaven right now.
I recall one doc actually saying and said, you know, if we'll know pretty quickly if he comes back and he'll do well and he doesn't change his motion, that he'll be fine. But if he does, then he'll have a problem. That's exactly what happened.
On July 4th, Mark's world fell apart again when he faced the Orioles.
Well, I can remember how hot it was, that series. I mean, it was just one of those series that was extremely oppressive in Baltimore. You know, we call it the flag was blowing straight down.
I just remember him giving up all these ground ball hits to me. I just remember a lot of, I thought, cheap hits.
I remember he had some pretty decent stuff, but right away, he had lost it.
It might have been the 5th or 6th inning, all of a sudden, I threw a pitch and it was like, boom, my arm went dead.
I just saw him act like something. Of course, you know, when you got a pitcher like that, you don't take any chances. And I went out, and as I remember, he said something about this. I said, that's enough.
He sat next to me after the game, you know, when everything had cleared away, because I was one to hang around the clubhouse. And he just said, man, my arm's bothering me.
After that knee surgery, maybe it changed his delivery a little bit, and maybe he put a little bit more pressure on his shoulder than what was naturally expected of it.
After 2 more unsuccessful starts, Fydrich was out for the season. He began looking for answers.
Oh, I saw every doctor that they possibly knew. Winter meetings for the doctors of all the clubs, I went down there, I was the guinea pig. Every doctor that was in the American League and National League was moving my arm, touching it, and they didn't know what it was. They said tendonitis, bursitis, you name it, they came up with it.
With no 2 doctors agreeing on a diagnosis, no one wanted to risk an operation.
They hesitated to take a chance with their present knowledge at that time. Here's a national figure, and the techniques are not just that good yet.
That was before Frank Jobe was doing people's shoulders. That was before, you know, you could get 2 or 3 opinions and get a Tommy John operation from any one of 5 or 6 doctors around the country.
Using rest and weight therapy to rehabilitate his shoulder, Fydrich came back to win the Tigers' 1978 season opener. But persistent pain limited him to just 2 more appearances that year. Between 1978 and 80, he made just 16 starts, winning 4.
Mark Fidrych has been gone so long, I called him Mark Fidrych at the beginning of this, but as the birdie talks to that ball, I hope that he has a great comeback, because he's a very colorful pitcher and a great one as well.
I do remember his attempts to come back and be what he was, and he worked hard to get the magic back.
What it's like to be down here. Well, it's still baseball, played the same way. Mainly it's, you lose your pride, but then you gotta think at least you're still playing baseball.
I could detect a sense of apprehension in Mark because Mark was wondering, he had to be wondering, is my career over? Was I a flash in the pan?
There was one night when Mark couldn't pitch. The pitcher went out there and started warming up, and the fans started booing him. His name was Jack Morris.
He knew he didn't have much, but he loved to play baseball, and he just tried it. He used to tell me his shoulder was killing him.
He couldn't throw faster than batting practice fastballs, and he didn't have the veteran's guile. He didn't have a great array of pitches, and it was obvious that he just didn't have an arm anymore, and he couldn't pitch.
When the Tigers released Fydrich in 1981, his old manager, Ralph Houck, now with Boston, gave him another chance with the AAA team in Pawtucket.
And at times he was throwing pretty hard. Now that maybe he's going to come back, but he never could get his control back.
I was at one of the games when he was at Pawtucket, and I know that you could see the disappointment in Mark and also how he felt that he was letting his fans down, or even maybe himself.
It was like when you went out to battle now, you went out with not a full tank of gas. You went out with a half a tank, sometimes a third a tank. You look in the mirror and you're going, you get the uniform on, oh, here it goes again. What's going to happen today? You were defeated before you even went out because you knew you didn't have what you had.
His whole life is wrapped up in this shoulder, and he knows probably in his heart of hearts that, I could be all done. I'm not even 30, I could be all done. Very frustrating.
It was dawning on him that the moment's over. Things have changed around here. It's no longer the summer of '76.
Over 2 seasons with Pawtucket, Fydrich went 8-13. Clearly, the life had gone out of his arm.
There's a certain sadness there. Up comes this kid, and he's like a fan, and he's out there pitching, and he's having a wonderful time, and his eccentricities capture the nation. And then he's gone.
In 1983, with 29 Major League victories, 28-year-old Mark Fidrych came to a decision more painful than 1,000 rotator cuff injuries.
I called my father. I said, Dad, I'll be at Logan Airport tomorrow at this time. I'm retiring. I'm done. I've had enough agony, defeat. I can't handle it no more. I just don't have what I used to have.
My family was heartbroken. I was there when we picked Mark up from Pawtucket, and he was very sad, very sad. I believe he even cried.
I said, Dad, I'm done. Didn't we have a great ride? He goes, yeah, son, you did have a great ride. I said, yeah, done. Life goes on.
Mark returned to his home in Northborough. The baseballs he once talked to have been replaced by animals.
Come here. What's up?
In 1985, Mark met a hometown girl, Ann, and the couple got married just 1 year later.
After baseball was over, it was kind of a challenge finding something that could potentially substitute for anything that someone enjoyed to that level. So it was just a matter of finding something that he felt that he wanted to give a try.
Hey, wait a second. 1 minute you're making $125,000. Next minute you're making 0. So now I got into trucking.
He couldn't even drive a truck when he bought his truck. You need to know that. So $110,000, couldn't drive this thing with like 50 billion gears and all of this. And he says, I'm going to do this because I really feel that I want to try it, and I'm there, go for it. My first ride, I was pregnant. He had to push me in, and we were driving down the street. He's shifting gears, and the thing is back and forth.
Now the challenge was, can I back it up into this tight spot? Can I get in this area? Can I do this? Can I do that? So I've been doing that for 13 years now, truck driving. So I'm learning how to lay sewer pipe. I'm learning how to lay drain pipe, catch basins. Different thing in life now.
Although it's not known whether he talks to his truck, Fydrich named it Jessica for his only child.
I have a family. I have a lot of things that I thought when I was 15 years old I'd never have in my life. I get up in the morning, hey, life is beautiful.
He just came out of nowhere and went right to the top instantly, and then was the brightest star in the sky while he was there. And then even though the star fell early, it's never been forgotten. He made his mark, and it will always be there.
During his phenomenal rookie season, Fydrich promised he would ride the wave as long as it lasted. Well, long after the wave crashed, Fydrich remained a star. When the Tiger Stadium lights went out for the last time in 1999, no one among the attending Tiger greats got a bigger ovation than the Bird. Even today, lines form to get his autograph whenever he visits Detroit. Like the Edsel, Mark Fidrych remains one of Detroit's most enduring curiosities. For ESPN Classic Sports Century, I'm Chris Fowler.